If you're thinking about moving to Brevard County, Melbourne, Palm Bay, Cocoa Beach, anywhere along the Space Coast, there are some real challenges you need to understand before you make that decision. I'm going to walk you through 10 things that genuinely affect your quality of life here. And look, some of these might be a deal breaker for you, and that's okay. Better to know now than after you've moved. This isn't about selling you on the area. This is about education. Because the worst thing that can happen is you relocate here and discover something you didn't even know to ask about. So let's get into it. And I'm going to start with the one that hits people's wallet the hardest. The first thing you need to understand is the true cost of hurricane insurance in Brevard County. And when I say this catches people off guard, I mean it derails deals. Here's the reality. For a home valued around $400,000, you're looking at homeowners insurance between $4,000 and $6,000 per year, and that's base coverage. But here's what most people don't realize. Standard homeowners insurance does not cover flood damage. So you need separate flood insurance, and that's another $600 to $2,000 per year, depending on your flood zone and elevation. If you're near the coast or in a low-lying area, you could be on the higher end of that range. Now let me explain hurricane deductibles, because this is where it gets expensive. Hurricane deductibles are not fees like your regular deductible. They're percentage based, typically 2 to 10% of your home's insured value. So if you have a $300,000 home with a 5% hurricane deductible, you're paying $15,000 out of pocket before your insurance kicks in. Not $1,000, not $2,500, $15,000. And that adds up. Add it all up, homeowners insurance, flood insurance, that percentage-based deductible, and you could easily be looking at $10,000 to $15,000 per year in insurance costs for a coastal property. Now there's a way to reduce these costs. Wind mitigation features can cut your premiums by up to 62%. Things like hurricane-rated windows, reinforced garage doors, newer roofs with right strapping. But if you're buying an older home built before 2000, those features may not be there, and your insurance costs will be higher until you invest in upgrades. If you want help understanding what insurance will actually cost for a specific property based on its age, location, and features, my contact info is in the description. Now let's talk about the weather, because people move to Florida for the sunshine and warm temperatures, but they're not always prepared for what summer actually feels like here. Brevard County summers are hot, long, oppressive, and humid. We're talking temperatures in the high 80s to low 90s from May through October. But it's not just the temperature, it's that humidity that gets you. When the humidity is high, which is most of the summer, it feels significantly hotter than the actual temperature. And we've had days where temperatures hit over 100 degrees. Your air conditioning will run nonstop May to October, which drives your electric bill up. And if you're in an urban area like Titusville, Cocoa, Melbourne, or Palm Bay, there's something called a heat island effect. All that concrete and pavement absorbs heat during the day and releases it at night, so it doesn't cool down the way you'd expect. Here's what that means for your lifestyle. You can't just go for a walk in the middle of the day in July. You're going to plan your outdoor activities around the heat, early morning or evening. You're going to live in the air conditioning, and if you're not used to that level of humidity, it takes time to adjust. Our winters are beautiful, and that's the trade-off. But summer here is a real thing, and you need to know it's coming. Okay, the next one depends on what you're looking for in terms of entertainment and nightlife, because Brevard County is not Miami, and it's not even Orlando. If you're in your 20s or 30s and you're looking for a vibrant nightlife scene, a ton of restaurants, cultural events, concerts, you're gonna find Brevard County pretty quiet. We have beach bars, we have some local music venues, and there are events throughout the year, but if you're used to having dozens of options for nightlife and entertainment every weekend, you might find this area feels a little limited. Some residents have described it as super mediocre for entertainment. The restaurant scene is improving, but it's not what you'd find in Tampa or Fort Lauderdale. If you're someone who thrives on cultural amenities, theater, art galleries, live music every night, you'll probably be driving to Orlando pretty regularly. Now, if you're someone who values a quieter lifestyle, who's focused on outdoor activities like boating, fishing, surfing, kayaking, then Brevard has plenty to offer. The beaches are beautiful, the outdoor recreation is fantastic, and you're close enough to Orlando for theme parks and bigger events when you want them. So ask yourself, what does your lifestyle actually look like? What do you want to be around? Because everywhere here on the Space Coast can feel very different, and I want to make sure you end up in that place that fits you and what you're actually looking for. Let's talk about traffic, specifically Interstate 95, which is the main north and south corridor through Brevard County. I-95 is how people get around if they're traveling any distance. And as the population here grows, so does the congestion. You're going to hit backups, especially during rush hour or on weekends. People are heading to the beach or leaving town. But here's what really causes problems. I-95 shuts down. And when it shuts down, it can shut down completely both directions for hours. We've had accidents that close lanes for hours with massive delays. We've had police activity that shut down the highway, and we've had wildfires that's created so much smoke that they had to close I-95 in both directions because visibility was near zero. So when that happens, the detours are long. There aren't a lot of alternative routes, so you're stuck on back roads that aren't designed to handle that kind of traffic. And as Brevard County continues to grow, the infrastructure is trying to keep up. But right now, traffic congestion is a real issue, and it is something you should be aware of before you move here. All right, let's talk about the economics of living here, because that's a big one that affects whether people can actually afford to stay long term. The cost of living in Brevard County is slightly below the national average overall, about 4% lower. But that doesn't tell the whole story, because housing costs have been climbing fast. The median home price in Brevard County right now is around $340,000. Back in 2000, it was about $90,000. So housing has gotten significantly more expensive. And when you add in insurance costs, property taxes, and all the other expenses we've talked about, your monthly housing costs can add up quickly. Now here's where it gets tricky. If you're in the aerospace or defense industry, and we have a lot of that here because of the Kennedy Space Center and companies like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, you can make good money, but those jobs are competitive. For a single adult, the living wage in Brevard County varies depending on your household situation, but you need to earn enough to cover housing, food, transportation, healthcare, and everything else. So if you're relocating here for work, just make sure you understand what salaries actually look like in your field. And if you're retiring here, make sure your budget accounts for the true costs of home ownership, insurance, maintenance, property taxes, and all of that. The next one is uncomfortable, but it's important. Brevard County has a growing homelessness crisis, and it's tied directly to the affordability issue we just talked about. Now, this isn't something that's going to affect your day-to-day life in most neighborhoods, but it's a real issue that reflects the economic pressures in the county, and it's something that the community is trying to address. I mention it because it's a part of understanding the full picture of what's happening here. Brevard County is growing, and with that growth comes challenges: affordability, housing availability, economic inequality. If you have kids, or if you're planning to have kids, you need to know about the school situation in Brevard County. The schools here are underfunded compared to the other parts of the country. That's a statewide issue in Florida. The per student funding for public schools and universities is among the lowest in the nation. And the funding situation means teachers are stretched thin. Resources can be limited, and there's an ongoing concern about budget cuts at the state level. So if education is a priority for you, you need to do your homework, literally. Look at the specific schools in the neighborhoods you're considering. Talk to parents, understand what the school boundaries are, and what the test scores and ratings look like. Let's talk about two natural hazards that people don't always think about when they picture Florida: wildfires and flooding. Wildfires are a real risk in Brevard County, especially during our long dry season from December to May. We've had wildfires that created so much smoke, they shut down I-95 completely. And flooding is a serious concern, especially if you're in the low-lying area or nearby water. Just 1 inch of water in your home can cause $20,000 or more in damage. And remember, standard homeowners insurance does not cover flood damage. That is separate. Some areas are more at risk than others. If you're looking at properties near the Indian River Lagoon, near canals, or in neighborhoods with a lot of ponds, you need to understand your flood zone and your elevation. There are areas with elevation is only 6 feet above sea level. That means heavy rain or storm surge can cause real problems. Now, this doesn't mean you can't live here safely, but it does mean you need to be smart about where you buy. You need to understand your property's flood history, and you need to have an evacuation plan for hurricane season. Here's something that affects your daily lifestyle. Brevard County is spread out. It's what we call shapeless urban sprawl. Outside of a few areas like some of the beach communities, Suntree, historic downtown Melbourne, most of the county is not walkable. You're going to need a car for everything. Grocery store, restaurants, errands, all of it. There's not a cohesive downtown feel in most places. It's just neighborhoods and strip malls and wide roads. For some people, that's fine. For others, especially if you're used to living in a walkable city, it feels isolated. Now, there are pockets that have more community feel. Cocoa Beach has a walkable downtown area. Melbourne has some walkable neighborhoods, but overall, this is a car-dependent area. So if walkability is important to you, if you want to be able to stroll to coffee shops or restaurants or parks, you need to be very intentional about which neighborhood you choose. Okay, last one, and this is sensitive, but it's honest. Brevard County leans conservative politically. That's not a judgment, it's a demographic reality. For some people, that's great, and for others, it's not. Now, none of this means Brevard County is a bad place to live, but it does mean you need to find the right community within the county, because the vibe in Cocoa Beach is very different from the vibe in Palm Bay, which is different from Satellite Beach. So when I ask you, what is your lifestyle like? What do you want to be around? I'm trying to match you to the neighborhood where you're going to feel comfortable and at home. Okay, so we spent a while talking about the challenges of living in Brevard County, and I want to be clear. This is not me trying to talk you out of moving here. This is making sure you understand what you're getting into. Because when you know the real challenges up front, you can plan for them. You can budget for the insurance costs, you can choose the right neighborhood, you can prepare for hurricane season. You can adjust your expectations about entertainment and walkability. And here's the thing, despite all these challenges, people still love living here because there's a real reason to be here. The beaches are beautiful, the outdoor recreation is incredible, boating, fishing, surfing, kayaking. You're warm almost all year round. You can watch rocket launches from your backyard. You can boat to restaurants and drive to the beach in minutes. It's everyday waterfront living, not just special occasions. And if you're someone who values a quieter, more laid-back coastal lifestyle, and you're less concerned about nightlife and more interested in being on the water, then this area has a lot to offer. But you have to go in with your eyes open. You have to understand the insurance costs, the weather, the infrastructure challenges, the economic realities, and that's where I come in. My job is not to sell you on a fantasy. My job is to help you understand what waterfront living actually can look like in Brevard County before you commit to serious money. I want you to know what you're getting into, because the worst thing that can happen is you move here and discover something that makes you regret your decision. So if you're thinking about relocating to the Space Coast and you want someone who's going to be straight with you about the challenges and the opportunities, my contact info is in the description below. I'm happy to walk you through your situation, your lifestyle, your budget, and what you're actually looking for. Because at the end of the day, this is a big decision, and I want to make sure it's a decision you make with all the information you have. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.